Some of you may remember that on environmental issues, this was something I saw coming at us a long time ago and felt like a lonely voice within the company. And there weren't a lot of people that really understood the fact that this was something we had to address. And a few years ago, I gave a TED Talk in Los Angeles about the notion that I coined a phrase, global gridlock, which is basically the fact that mathematics was going to overwhelm us. Too many people moving into urban areas, and ultimately with the inability to move freely around those urban areas, and all of you already see that in places around the world. At a minimum, that was going to become a giant distraction, but if you take it to its extreme, it really became a human rights issue if you couldn't deliver health care and food around urban areas. So it was a big, big issue that I think our industry wasn't really prepared to deal with. But I love the fact that our company responded immediately, and we, in 2012, issued our blueprint for mobility, which really laid out how we were going to address this issue in a thoughtful way. And obviously the time frames move around because technology is changing so fast, and since 2012 it feels like a lifetime already. But we went to work on it and really decided that mobility was an area that we had to focus on. And it really, in many ways, was the way we were going to define ourselves as a company going forward. And at the same time, something interesting happened to me because the governor asked me, Governor Snyder of Michigan asked me if I would join him going around the country and talking to businesses about bringing business back to Michigan. And as we did that, we've made a few of those visits, we're going to make a few more, but people always start talking about technology and the fact that, why aren't we doing more in Michigan technologically? And of course, it was a great frustration for me because the auto industry is a huge developer and user in technology. But the basic point, though, really resonated. This is where it all began. As Mark said, our history is one of developing through innovation and through technology. So that's why this morning's announcement to me is very cool because we are announcing a technology incubator in our hometown, in the Motor City, that really will help us solve this big issue of mobility as we go forward. And so, to me, this is a very, very cool moment. We are announcing Techstars Mobility driven by Detroit, which, there's been already, the news is out, but you all know it's an incubator that focuses on developing mobility solutions. And Ford, Verizon Telematics, and Magna are all together in this initiative. So with us today here are Swami Kotajiri from the CTO of Magna, and Tom Taylor, General Manager of Data Analytics at Verizon. And I'd just like to thank you both for joining us, because together we're committing $2 million of incubator funding, plus the full support of our companies to provide mentors to the startups who will participate. And I have volunteered to be one of the first mentors from Ford. I can't wait to work with Techstars and these young companies to see what they're going to come up with. It's going to be a hub for transportation and mobility innovations in downtown Detroit. And it's supporting entrepreneurs who bring new technologies to market that will revolutionize the next generation of mobility. Initially, 10 startups from around the world will be chosen to participate, and they'll be housed in the accelerator in Detroit. And the incubator series will be over a 3-year period with a total of 30 startup companies. And over a 3-month period, the startups will work with mentors from Ford, Verizon, and Magna to develop technologies as well as intensive training in their business development. So I can't wait to see what comes out of this. And history has shown that we make some of our greatest achievements when faced with a serious challenge. And frankly, this is one of those moments. So in a few minutes, I'll be back up here to help take some of your questions. But for now, I'd like to introduce David Brown, founder and managing partner of Techstars Detroit, who will share some of the details about the program. David?
Good morning, everybody. Transportation and mobility are changing, and we're excited to help the next generation of companies in their journey to affect that change. We're excited to do it with Ford, a company that obviously is synonymous with innovation and forward thinking. And we're very, very excited to do it in Detroit, which is the epicenter of the global transportation ecosystem. I'd like to thank Fontanellis Partners, Detroit Venture Partners, and Renaissance Venture Capital, three prominent venture capital firms that are also supporting the program. So what is this accelerator all about? Briefly, it's as Bill described, a 3-month program, boot camp, where 10 companies will come and get intensive mentorship. And it is a model that has existed for 8 years. It started in Boulder, Colorado, and has since expanded to 15 programs worldwide, including this one. We run these programs independently, but importantly, they're all interconnected. So the entrepreneurs that go through the accelerator here in Detroit will have access to all of the information, knowledge, mentorship, investor base, and corporate connections that have existed in the other programs that we've run. What does that mean? That means that they have connections into Silicon Valley. That means they have mentorship from other prominent business leaders across the country, and they have connections into the other corporate partners that we run accelerators with, like Disney and Barclays and RGA, Kaplan, and others. And so we're very excited to kick off this program. Applications have just opened. We expect hundreds, perhaps over 1,000 applications, and from that we'll pick the top 10. The program will start in June and will culminate in a demo day in September, in which we'll invite a number of you and many accredited investors to be able to help fund the companies as they continue on their journey. The results of these programs are staggering. The companies that go through the various Techstar programs raise on average $1.9 million. 8 out of 10 of them go on to get funding. Only 1 out of 10 doesn't need, so only 1 out of 10 aren't successful. And over $1 billion has been raised so far by all of our graduates. So we're excited to get going, and we're excited to come to Detroit. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dave. We are going to, I know there's a lot of questions around this, so we're excited about certainly this initiative. So what I'd like to do, so you can all hear from some of the key folks who are part of this, is invite Bill Ford back up, along with Swami from Magna, and then Tom Taylor from Verizon Telematics. And we'll take a few minutes for Q&A from the audience. I'm a little intimidated, I'll admit. I got Paul Eisenstein, who normally has 5-part questions, and I can't be that good. But I'm going to try to, at least I have to kick it off, and if not, but hopefully we'll have folks in the audience here who have microphones. If you want to just raise your hand. Paul, you think I'm going to go to you first? And then the Ford folks can help, but we do have mics. If you want to, Paul, we will let you ask the first question, since you've got your hand up.
What type of companies do you expect, and how does this differ from what you might have in some other markets around the country?
So I'll take that one. I think, we would expect a broad range of companies to come apply. I think we're focusing on mobility in general, which is broader than just automotive, and expect any type of transportation companies, think ride sharing, think pollution control, beyond just electronics or automotive applications.
Paul, if you think of the disruption that's coming at the mobility, I wouldn't say the auto industry, the mobility space, you've got ownership models that are changing, you've got smart parking types of applications, you obviously have vehicle-to-vehicle communication, vehicle infrastructure communication, apps being developed, all these things, really are in the mobility space. Big data, because a lot of this is going to require analytics, real-time data crunching. So, the space really, in my mind, can comprise a lot of different kind of companies.
All right, do we have a hand back there? Can't see that, but here's it. Daron?
Hi, Daron Levine. I just wanted to ask David what you have to do to qualify to contest for one of these spots. Do you have to be an American candidate? Can you be an overseas candidate? What's the qualification to compete for this spot?
Yeah, the qualification is that you are a great set of entrepreneurs willing to build a really interesting company. We only half jokingly say the criteria are team, market progress, idea, because the people we've discovered are capable of, great people with a mediocre idea do a lot better than mediocre people with a great idea. And so there are no requirements in terms of geography or anything else. This is sort of what we do, is to try to figure out who the next big up-and-comer is early in the life cycle of the company.
Will there be any effort on the part of the three organizations involved to either purchase or license the technology that comes out of this TechStar program, rather than making it available to the entire country or the world?
Yes, so from a Verizon perspective, we're really excited to be a part of this with Ford, a car maker, and Magna, a tier 1, and we're a service provider, so we see that there's going to be a lot of opportunities come out of that companies may go on their own. We may license technology. They may become a part of a Verizon or a Ford down the path. So we're really excited about what can come out of it. We've just completed a program within Verizon, what we call Powerful Answers. It's a Verizon internal. And to answer the earlier question, I was surprised how many transportation solutions came from outside the U.S. And to Bill's point, I was surprised how diverse they were. Car sharing, mobility, urban issues, really diverse things are being thought about by a lot of entrepreneurs around the world.
Yeah, I think going through the open innovation process from the Magnum perspective, we have always tried to look at fundamental sciences, the macro trends of CO2 emissions and so on, and obviously the new trends of mobility and connectivity and so on. We are surprised at how many ideas come from outside the industry, because you see the confluence of a car which used to be just a mechanical, hydraulic, electrical, electronic system, now really becoming the ultimate mobility device, if you want to call it. So, recently we just finished a wine video, 7 to 8 seconds, asking people to describe what they think is the car of the future, and it's just amazing what comes, as ideas. So we're looking forward to see the ideas and how we can use the technology to make the products, safer, or cleaner, lighter, and smarter.
Got another question over here, Ken.
Ken Zeno for Mr. Ford. Maybe I should say the occasionally prescient Mr. Ford. You now have a ride-sharing company that has a market cap of between $40 or $50 billion, which would make it a mid-sized car company. I would like to ask Bill, what does this mean in the overall direction of Ford Motor Company?
Yeah, I mean, look, just to tell you a quick story, a few years ago I was speaking at a conference, and the speaker after me was the CEO of Zipcar, and this is when they were very young, and I hadn't heard of them. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago. And so, but immediately following his pitch, I said to him, look, I'd love to go grab a cup of coffee. And he said, well, didn't you listen to my pitch? I was talking about taking cars off the road. And my answer to him was, look, this is going to happen with or without us. I'd like to find a way to have it work together. And so our teams got together, and what we concluded was that we would go on over 250 college campuses together with Ford cars and with Zipcar. Because they had data that showed that when people left Zipcar to purchase a car, they were heavily influenced by what they drove as part of that experience. And so that was a way of finding a win-win with a potential adversary and turning them into a friend. And so all these trends that are happening around us, are happening sometimes with us, sometimes quite independent of us. But I'd like to find a way to engage all of these companies because the world is changing. And I think one of the things that we at Ford feel is really important is that A, we understand this space, B, that we're not threatened by new models that are business models that are coming at us, and then figure out what's our point of view with that, and can we work with this potential disruptor, whether it's a technology disruptor or a business model disruptor.
All right, any other questions? I see someone in the back here, and we'll take the man in the vest.
I'd like to know a little bit more about how the TechStars program is working. I know that Coke does something similar with their Bridge program. So is it, but theirs is more like a competition. They pick 10 people, 10 companies, the top 2 get basically to be customers of theirs. What happens with the 10 that you're going to pick? Are they all, you say that you have a 90% success rate. That is by far exponentially more than the norm. Can you explain what you're going to be doing?
Yeah, so, the TechStars program is not a competition. The 10 companies all are viable companies, and our role together with our partners is to help them to be as successful as they can. We want to give them advice, we want to make sure they get funding, we want to give them resources, we want to give them connections, and we've sort of assembled this network that I was talking about earlier that is the best way that we've found to sort of enable that success. This is not about a specific relationship at the end with Ford or Verizon or Magna, although those things may develop. It may be that we all support them and they go off and create great companies independently. That there should not be a sense that there are winners and losers here. Our goal is to make all 10 of them winners.
Jim Motivali, it does seem that the auto companies, particularly in the tech space, are becoming less vertically integrated than they used to be, and you partner with all sorts of people. Is that part of this? Do you see the companies that you're working with will end up as potential partners, and whoever wants to take that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I said, there is interaction between different systems, different technologies, different fundamental science. Even from the OEM customers that we see the requirement of the needs that they have or the challenges they have. And we as Tier 1 would like to bring forward solutions rather than wait for the question to come to them. So that's what drives innovation from our perspective is what are the challenges, whether it's your emissions and urbanization and the change in the mobility concepts and so on. So I think it cannot be the same industry. We have a rich history of innovation and bringing in ideas to commercialized industry innovations, but we have to look outside, not just our companies, but outside the industry to see what's been done and how we can utilize it going forward. So I think this is going to be a great initiative to get that.
Let's see, any more hands over here? Get a mic over here. Do you want us to just state your name?
Mike Milliken. Does TechStars receive any equity position in the companies you select?
Yeah, so the program is that $120,000 is invested into each company in exchange for equity, and that equity is shared amongst various partners. There are no fees to the startups coming through the program. We invest in them. They don't pay to join.
All right, let's see a hand. Paul's back. Paul, go ahead. You have the mic.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you what this says about both the changing auto industry and more locally, what does it say about the changing Detroit? The timing with the emergence from bankruptcy yesterday, with the explosion of development downtown, the emergence of an art scene and an incubation scene. This seems perfectly timed.
Well, let me take a crack at this because I'm so excited that we are doing this and that we're doing it in Detroit because we've been the Motor City for over 100 years. But as we think about all these huge opportunities ahead of us, and I actually don't look at them as challenges. I think they're enormous opportunities. And as we look at them, we need to make sure that we are the locus of activity here in the Motor City where it all began. And so for me, not only does it resonate with the rebirth of the city of Detroit, which is obviously something that I care deeply about, but it also, in many ways, is an injection of new thought into the auto industry, and I think that's also really interesting.
Okay, in the back there, if we get a mic, very back row.
Yes, hi. I would like to know, how will you advertise this program? How will you get people to sign in?
I mean, I think from a Techstars standpoint, like all our programs, we'll publicize it through most of our channels, which for entrepreneurs include startup meetups. We'll do a roadshow to go find the best entrepreneurs and talk to them about the programs, and answer their questions. And I think in addition to that, there's some good buzz that'll happen in the press that'll allow the information to disseminate quickly to everybody who's interested in participating in the program because they have a mobility application and they're interested in working very directly with, Ford, Verizon, Magna, and the others.
All right. Right here at this table, if we could. Just want to identify yourself too, please.
Yeah, Charles Chrome with AutoVitel.com. I'm just curious, are you going to make an effort to ensure there's a diverse range of applicants that you see?
Well, we work hard at that, and we encourage diversity in the applications. Of course, we select the best, but the effort to make sure that we have enough women entrepreneurs in particular, because it's a very male-dominated ecosystem, is really important to sort of open up the funnel.
All right, so we're going to wrap up this panel discussion. I want to thank all of you for taking part in that. If you want to just exit to your left, we'll get the program underway.